Hello, everyone. This is Raise Your Voice as part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Brett Rutherford, joined as always by my good friend and co-host, Darby Robinson. We are live on youtube.com/at Raise Your Voice and also still available wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to become a Raise Your Voice Patreon member, head on over to raiseyourvoice.com/Patreon, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. Darby, we're coming off of I think a disappointing end to the road trip. Overall, you go 500 on the road trip, and right now from the Rays, that's about all you can ask for. But I think if you picked which series the Rays would win and which one they would struggle in, you might have had it flipped. They go to Miami and they lose 2 of 3 to the Marlins. The most disappointing of which, and I kind of want to talk about this game and how this played out first, was yesterday's loss in the series finale. You had multiple instances where you just couldn't capitalize with runners on, a little bit of batted ball luck, I think, in there. The most disappointing part of that game, though, was the performance by Shane Baz. And it was I know he hasn't pitched a whole lot in the last couple of years, but it was the shakiest he's looked really ever in a Rays uniform. I just don't think any of his pitches were really working for him. And we're going to dive into some of the struggles he and the rest of the starting rotation have had. But man, that was just a really disheartening game to watch. We never want to take too much from one game, but yesterday's game really just left a bad taste in I think a lot of people's mouths.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the Marlins series in general felt like there was a lot of meat on the bones there. You win the Sandy Alcantara game, which you're like, okay, the Zach Littell versus Sandy Alcantara, you win, and like you outplay the Marlins like top to bottom. But the start of the series and the end of the series, Taj Bradley and Shane Baz both really disappointing. And the Baz one, it's funny because like hit on his ledger, right? Like if you just look at the top line box score, he just gave up 2 bombs, right? So you're like, okay, he was 2 pitches away from giving up 0 runs. He was so fortunate to have given up just 5. Like that was a terrible pitching performance. Like he missed no bats. The Marlins had 2 runners on every inning of that game. He led off with a walk or a hit pretty much in every single inning. And he had a streak there where he was just getting some very, very fortuitous luck. And that luck just eventually ran out. He had Josh Lowe had a great hose at home plate, saving a run, but the hard hit balls, there was 12 hard hit balls by the Marlins against Baz. Many of them went for double plays, line drives into gloves. Like he was super, super fortunate. He just did not pitch a good game at all. Very low K rate. And this is not anything new for Shane Baz right now. I mean, May has been an absolute horror show for him. He started the season really strong. So I'll just set those numbers. He had his first 5 starts in April. He had an 11 K per 9 rate, under 3 walks per 9, kept the home runs low, really nice getting ground balls at almost a 50% clip, had a 2.45 ERA and a 3.09 FIP. Turn the calendar over to May, and suddenly he's getting his K to walk ratio is basically 1-to-1. Which is terrible. ERA is 9.61. His FIP is 7.1 or 7.5. His xFIP is 5.24. So like even like the expected rate, it was like it's been as bad as it's looked. Nothing is working for Shane. He's not getting pitches by bats like right now. So if the batted balls find gloves, his starts can be serviceable, but you can't live forever on this. I mean, he is truly, we've talked a lot about like, Shane Littell, Zach Littell being the like kind of Shane Littell is, I guess, that's the new nickname for but like Zach Littell has been much more your stable guy that you want as like your 4 or 5. Baz in particular has not pitched even like a 5. Like you cannot have this level of instability. And last night was a pretty good example. Like you have, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, is a day game. there's no reason Shane Baz should be in there in the 6th, except for the fact that I think the Rays, they're playing another series today. It's been a road trip, not a lot of off games. I think Cash is wanting to keep that bullpen fresh, or doesn't trust him. Either way, you try to get an extra inning out of Shane Baz. A 2-run lead turns into a 4-run lead because he gives up base hit, home run, or a walk-in home run on that one. I think this is another example of like Shane Baz right now, and we're going to sort of talk about both Baz and Taj Bradley, but right now, if you're keeping Shane Baz in your rotation, and you aren't going to say move him down to the minors, move him to the pen, trade him, like we have talked about, basically all the things we've talked about with Zach Littell. If you're not going to do any of those things with Shane Baz and he's staying in the rotation, you have to manage him much better than Cash is managing him. You have to manage him like he is a fringe starter. You have to manage him like he was Tyler Alexander. And you're just basically like, all right, we got to the 5th. We got to be like ready. We got to have bullets warmed, ready to go. And the second somebody gets on, you're getting the hook, because he is just not somebody that you can get that extra inning out of. You might be able to. He's going to give up some hard hit balls. If those go on the ground, they can find gloves. They can be double plays, but that's bad gambling.
Yeah, there's always been pitchers where they're gonna give up 1 or 2 home runs in a start. Like Littell has kind of been that guy. You just hope no one's on base when he gives them up, right? Like, all right, if you do that, you give up a couple solo shots, you get through 5 innings, we'll take that start. With Baz, age 25 season, finally fully healthy, him and Taj Bradley, right? And that's the other guy we're going to kind of dive into a little bit more on this episode. This was the year we were expecting them to maybe take that jump, take that next step, and become more solidified members of this rotation. I'm looking at this now with Shane Baz, and I'm like, I'd rather see Joe Boyle get those starts. Now, that's just me saying that after a bad Shane Baz start. Like you said, 3 weeks ago, we saw really good Shane Baz, and it's just been a rough last handful of starts. There's a lot to go in this season. Shane Baz still has some of the tools to be a very successful starting pitcher. The knuckle curve, still an incredible pitch. There's just something that he needs to figure out with the fastball and with his pitch mix, and he can't be nibbling.
No,
it's just he is not sharp right now. So I don't know if it's a mechanical issue. Sometimes if there's an underlying, like it's really hard for pitchers to play through any sort of injury, because even the slightest thing you feel in your back or your hip or your neck or anywhere can throw off your mechanics to a point where you just lose all effectiveness. I hope that's not the case. Shane Baz, like out of like 8, there's like 80 qualified starting pitchers. He's still 15th in pitching plus, right? Which is a combination of stuff plus and location plus. So there are still some of the obvious tools there that can make him successful, but his fastball sitting at a 93 stuff plus, which is well in the bottom half of qualified starting pitchers. That's just, if you do not have, like, there are very few pitchers that can be successful without a strong fastball. It's not impossible. But those are usually more of the tinkerers, right? The guys that are gonna have 8 different pitches, like the Seth Lugos of the world, and multiple different fastballs, right? Not just a 4-seam. And I don't know, like, does Shane Baz need time in the minors? I would like to think we're past that point. He is still only 25. But for the Rays and the way the Rays do things, these are the years for Baz and for Taj Bradley where, in all honesty, like, they need to extract the most value out of these guys while they're young, while they're healthy, and neither of them have, Baz hasn't been particularly healthy, and before they get really expensive. So I think that's where I'm at, and from a disappointment standpoint, because I didn't see any version of this team that made the postseason without significant contributions from Taj Bradley and Shane Baz, more so Bradley, and we'll get to him in a second. But to see those guys pitch at a lot of times worse than Zach Littell, that's a red flag for me, and that's that's kind of where we're at in the season right now, and why you're 4 games under 500 and can't really. It's hard to get a winning streak going when it's like you've got Drew Rasmussen who pitches really well, and Ryan Pepio who pitches solid, and Zach Littell who gets a job done, and then you turn the ball over to Bradley and Boz, and they're just not getting the job done on those days. Mm-hmm. You couple that with the middling offense, and that's how you get to a point where the Rays are just struggling winning games.
Consistently. I mean, they can compete in every single game, and they have been competing in every single game, really. Like, there's been very few just like completely non-competitive games, but like it's hard to overcome when you have you have 2 starters who are just going to be given.
Not sure if we lost Darby there or if my internet has cut out. Okay, I think we've lost Darby for a second. It appears that I'm still live and good to go. Just kind of building on what I was just saying. Let me message Darby to make sure his internet is good. I have a couple of theories as to, maybe it looks like he's back now. There you are.
My Wi-Fi dropped.
All good. Reason. All good. The last 2 episodes, it was me, so it was your turn this week.
My turn now. No. So what I was saying before my Wi-Fi kind of just served up a fat slider in the middle of the plate. Was
Shane Boz slider.
It's a Shane Boz slider right now. I think when you got Shane Boz, right, and Taj Bradley, when we're going to talk about like what's wrong with kind of why is it going so poorly for both of them? They're not missing bats, they're not getting whiffs, they're not getting Ks. And when you look at that fastball, you mentioned like his fastball stuff plus is down to 93, right? Like this is a guy that had a electric fastball in Boz. And also Bradley's fastball is also down, but like not as much as Shane Boz's is almost unusable. You look at guys similar at that range of that lower 90s in the stuff plus. You're looking at guys like Luis Castillo. You're looking at Nathan Eovaldi, Merrill Kelly, Seth Lugo. What you're looking at there is guys that are using that fastball to generate grounders. You're seeing that fastball as more of a heavy fastball. You're seeing it playing off of the fastball, the sinker, the splitter, that type of pitch, where you're not necessarily like the fastball itself maybe not be electric, but it is playing off of these other pitches that makes it really hard to hit. Boz needs that to ride and get past bats.
Why did none of the Rays starters throw a sinker?
I don't know if that's an organizational philosophy or if that's
it feels like it, because when's the last? Littell might throw something that's classified as a sinker, but he's not the high stuff guy. The top 6 pitchers in stuff plus in Major League Baseball all throw a sinker, and they're like 6 of the best sinkers in all of baseball. Tarek Skubal has a 111 stuff plus sinker. Drew Rasmussen, he's got the sinker, 116, and he is 3rd in baseball in stuff plus. Hunter Brown 122, Zach Wheeler 115.
Logan Webb's in there.
Paul Skeens 115. Logan, I'm sorting by total stuff plus. I'm not sorting by just the sinker stuff plus. Gotcha. But the guys that are all towards the top of the leaderboards in stuff plus all throw sinkers. And Drew Rasmussen has had the best stuff for a little bit now in the Rays staff, doesn't throw a sinker. And so it's like these guys like Boz, I'm counting as a homegrown player because we had him since he was in the low minor leagues. And Bradley, who was drafted by the Rays. Like, wouldn't you want these guys that have started out with great four-seam fastballs to play off with other types of fastballs? Because some of the best pitchers in baseball right now are able, like Paul Skeens throws multiple fastballs that move in different directions.
And multiple sinkers.
And multiple sinkers, right? And he's got
created a new pitch.
The cutter, right? Like Garrett Crochet has a cutter, and Drew Rasmussen has a cutter, right? Like, why is this when I'm gonna shift a little bit to Taj Bradley now. Bradley, who just doesn't have great breaking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we let him just continue to be a four-seam breaking ball guy? And he's got the splitter as well. But like the Rays had a really solid run for a number of years of ace pitchers that had some of the best curveballs in the game. You go back to, I mean, Chris Archer was a power slider. And then you went into Blake Snell with his curveball, and then Tyler Glasnow's like 12-6, drop off a table curveball. And then Shane McClanahan with both the slider and the curve. And so now you've got Taj Bradley and Shane Baz who don't have that. And I don't know, maybe we were just lucky and blessed for so long as Rays fans, just watching some of the most incredible breaking stuff. And so now you see it with these guys like Bradley and Baz, and we've seen these cracks in their armor a year ago. Like, this is not new to this year. We looked at them last year, these two pitchers in particular, and said, okay, these guys can be good, but they're not there yet. And it feels like their game plans have not changed coming into this year. And the hitters across the league, the book is out on these two guys. And they're starting to make harder contact on them. And the Rays and their pitching development and coaching aren't making the changes. I just can't make any sense of that right now.
One of the things with that splitter for Taj was that was sort of like a game-changing pitch, and it kind of has kept jumping up in usage. When he came up in 2023, it was a pitch he used about 14% of the time. 24 used it about 27% of the time, became his second most used pitch. And today it's still his second most used pitch. And a splitter makes total sense. It gives you a changeup. It gives you a little more funky changeup, basically, to play off of his cutter and his fastball. So you have your harder stuff. That fastball, which again started out as one of the game's best by Stuff Plus, is now pedestrian. So and then that splitter, if you look at his Stuff Plus numbers, it was pretty darn good. It was into the positive. Even last year it was 110. It was his second best pitch. Now this year it's below average by Stuff Plus. I think what you're looking at there is that it is going to be failing. It's going to be worse also because you're also just not getting that good enough fastball off of it. And so that splitter is going to be less effective. If you look at it just in terms of pitch values, that fastball is in the negative. All the other pitches are positive, but like the splitter is just barely. It is just right at average, where that used to be a really strong positive pitch. Yeah, the movement, the ride on his fastball, the movement on his other pitches, they're just not getting. Everything is just less effective. Everything is less effective. Like if you're looking at Baz, you're looking at Taj, everything is just across the board less effective right now, and that's really troubling. You look at the chase rate, the whiff rate, the K rate, the walk rate. These are like, this is how pitchers make their way. For all three of them, all down from last year. I mean, you're talking about Taj Bradley got a 27% whiff rate last year. That's down to just 22%. K rate is 19% this year. Last year was 26%. Shane Baz, very similar. This year you're looking at I'll say 2022 pre Tommy John, K rate was about 25%, whiff rate about 30%. This year you're looking at 22% whiff rate, 22% K rate. Like these are massive. That just means that people are hitting pitches. Whether they're putting on hard contact, soft contact, doesn't matter. They're just not getting those whiffs. And it's really hard, especially if you don't have a sinker, especially if you're not Logan Webb, who kind of transitioned from a guy who had a fast fastball that wasn't that great. And then the Giants basically were like, what about sinking it? What about throwing slower, but with more movement? And he's reinvented himself into being one of the best pitchers in baseball by just basically saying like, okay, I'm not going to maybe be able to blow people out at 98. So let me throw 96, 95 with funk and live that way. I don't know. Maybe that is like the path forward, like with Baz and Bradley, is like adding a pitch or retooling what they can do. But like you come into this off season, like that is something you do. That's not something you can do on the fly. that's something you work on in the spring. That's something you work on in the off season. That's something you go to Driveline for. Like that's something you don't do. Like you don't build the plane as it's flying. And so right now we're kind of in this spot where is there mechanic breakdown of what they're doing? Is there tipping of pitches? Like if you're not able to make those fixes in season, then this is like kind of all that there can be. But there's too much season left to be able to accept this every time out. So it's not tired arms. It's not fatigue yet. So the Rays have to figure out what that is.
Okay, so do you do that like while do you have to send Shane Baz down? Do you have to send Taj Bradley down?
Depending upon what it is. I think if you're Kyle Snyder, right, you have to have an idea right now what is going on with Shane Baz. Is it that his movement's worse, the velo, the sequencing? Like you have to know what's like if you had 5 starts that he was excellent. And now you have a whole month so far of baseball where he has been terrible. So you have to know kind of like what's going on. Each start out has been basically the same story. So if that something that you think that he can adjust and fix for that next start and be more effective, or is there something that he needs to like break down in his mechanics to retool? If it's the latter, yeah, send him down. I mean, he's like, you're talking about guys, Taj and Baz, that have options. So you can make some work with that. And it's not it is like a move that would, I think, be not a slap in the face, but I think it would be pretty embarrassing for them. But it also is something that might be needed. You know, you can't just, this isn't like the White Sox or the Rockies where you're coming into the season, you had no plans. You were like, we're not even 70 will be a Magic. We're just trying to work on stuff. You can work on stuff in Durham, especially with Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle kind of bearing down. Now, those guys are going to have bad starts too. The key to me is that this isn't like, okay, Shane Baz had a dud, right? We are long past duds. This is a whole month of bad starts. Taj Bradley has not really had 2 good starts in a row. He has had a good start and a bad start and a good start. So like for those guys, for Shane Baz, I need to see a good start again. Otherwise, I am going to be worried. Like, is he hiding an injury? And it's not showing up in velo and it's not showing up in spin rate, which are usually the telltale signs. So I don't know if it's injury or just performance, but Kyle Snyder should have an idea of what's going wrong. And they have to be, I would hope, more aggressive on this to fix it.
And it's hard, right? If there was something that you could put them on the IL for, not quite a phantom IL stint, but I don't know, his toenail is hurting or something. I don't know. And you would want to put him on the IL. Like that's the reason that stuff is because, you know, if you're shutting them down from throwing for any period of time, there is kind of a ramp up period. Like, okay, you go through your time on the IL, you go to Durham for a rehab start or 2, and maybe the first one's 3 innings, and then the next one is 4 innings, and then you're back. Like, all 5 of the Rays starters, knock on wood, as of today, are qualified starters. They haven't missed any turns through the rotation. They pushed everyone back one day once to let Boyle have that spot start when the games were a little congested early in the season. But I can't remember the last time the Rays have had that at this point in the season where there's been no injuries to the rotation other than, you know, McClanahan before the season started. And at some point, I don't know when, we haven't heard a whole lot. At some point, we'd get Shane McClanahan back and someone will have to get pushed out of the rotation. But if you do decide to send Baz to Durham, there's a few things you have to consider. You have to be really careful about messaging, right? You know, this is a guy who was a top prospect, has had some of the pedigree and has had some of the success. So when you send him down, what is your messaging to a player like that? You do not want to kill his confidence moving forward. Is there a plan? Say, hey, right now we want you to have 2 starts in Durham. Here's what we want you to work on, and then we'll go from there. I don't know. It's a complicated decision. There's no guarantees. We saw Joe Boyle for 1 start, and he was very good, and he's been very good for Durham. as easy as it is to just say, man, I want to see Joe Boyle. I want to see Joe Boyle. There's no guarantee that he's going to be a more effective pitcher every fifth day in the majors than Shane Baz or than Zach Littell. It's easy to say that, right? Like I'm going to use a weird analogy, but like you go to a college football game and when the starter for a not so good team like starts to have any struggles, the student section, for whatever reason, I think it's just like, I don't know, human nature or whatever, they start chanting for the backup. Like the backup is all of a sudden going to be like better and save the day. And Joe Boyle might be. I do want to see.
Everyone loves that backup quarterback. Everyone loves him.
Don't get me wrong. But the Rays have to either try to fix this on the fly, because I said this a couple weeks ago, and it still is early in the season. But how long can you say it's early in the season for?
Mm-hmm.
At what point are you 8 games back in the middle of June and saying, man, what are the Rays going to do to figure this out? Like, if you want to compete and get back into the postseason this year, you need to start winning more games now. Not saying any game is a must-win game, but I don't know. It's tough. I think I part of me is wondering if the Rays in their pitching development. Okay, my first theory on this. Let me start with this theory. The milder take is that pitching outside of the Trop is really hurting the Rays, and it's hurting the Rays in every which way that we feared the most coming into the season. Like, I think we looked at ways in which playing at Steinbrenner Field was going to be great for the Rays and great for guys like Brandon Lau and Jonathan Aranda and even, Yandy Diaz, and it was going to boost their offensive numbers, and the pitchers were going to be able to manage it because they were that good. And what's happening is the hitters, I don't know, I feel like we've had terrible luck on the offensive side at Steinbrenner Field, and the pitchers have really struggled leaving the pitching lab that is Tropicana Field. And we're seeing that's what's played out to this point, where the Rays have had a horrible record at home and a winning record on the road. So maybe as the year goes on, they figure it out. Maybe balls just bounce our way a little bit better at home moving forward, or maybe it's just something that's part of the 2025 season, and you either deal with it and we can complain about it all year, but that's just the reality. My second take is that I do wonder, based on some of the things we just talked about, has the Rays pitching philosophy lost a little bit of its edge compared to the rest of the league? I look at a couple other teams that are dealing with, I think, similar dips in pitching production. Cleveland, Milwaukee. These are teams that have used to be, right up there pitching, right? And the Rays, they've taken a dip. So does there need to be some sort of philosophical change within the organization? I'd like to think Kyle Snyder is the type of pitching coach that is willing to adjust and learn new things and try new things with young pitchers. So I don't know where this change needs to come, but maybe things have gotten a little stale. I think we've talked about, I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast a lot. The Rays have had the same front office and the same coaching staff in place for a long time, and consistency is a good thing. I think front offices and coaching staffs that have turnover because guys are going on to get bigger and better jobs, that's great. But if you can keep, the consistency and the messaging staying the same, that is mostly a good thing. However, can things get stale? Can messages get stale? Can other teams be innovating more than you are to the point where you lose your edge? That's my fear as I watch games and I watch some of these Baz starts and some of the other struggles that guys in the bullpen are having. Is the Rays were, I think, the best organization for pitchers for a long time, for probably a 6-7 year period. And we're not that right now, clearly. Not to say that we can't be again soon. But it was a long run. And again, maybe we were just blessed that the Rays were the best team at run prevention for a long, long time. And their time at the top of that list has come to an end.
I think it's a fun hot take for sure. And I think there could be some truth to it. But I will say this. When you look at in Major League Baseball right now, if you look at Stuff Plus, Location Plus, and Pitching Plus, 3 pitch modeling things that model different things, the Rays are top 10 in all 3. In fact, by Stuff Plus, they are top 3 as a pitching unit. They have amazing, they do produce amazing pitches and pitchers that have absolutely filthy, insane levels of stuff. The issue this year, and like it is the biggest issue right now, is they are giving up so many home runs. They are third most in all of baseball behind just the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. The Blue Jays and the Orioles do not have very good pitchers. The Rays do. So why is it that the Rays, with the best stuff in baseball, a top 5 stuff plus team, a top 5 pitching plus team, is in the very bottom? It's middling at 25th in FIP overall, fielding independent pitching, and third worst, 28th in home runs allowed. That to me is kind of a concerning sign. Now, the question is, could it be fluky? Could it be Steinbrenner Field kind of helping a lot of that? Yesterday, it was not, they were not in Steinbrenner Field when Shane Baz served up those 2 home runs. They were also poor sequencing. Like that slider for that first 3-run bomb was a terrible pitch with terrible movement in a terrible location. And I don't know how much of that is philosophy, how much of that is poor execution, how much of that is what? And I think, but it's an interesting question to kind of see going forward. And the real important thing is, can the Rays at least mitigate it, right? Like young pitchers are going to be frustrating, right? Hunter Brown's a really perfect example with Houston. He is probably leading the Cy Young candidacy for the AL. Tarik Skubal probably has the inside track on winning his second, but like Hunter Brown is like right there right now. It's like he's pitching an amazing year. You told me that last year, Hunter Brown was right where Shane Baz and Taj Bradley was. He was kind of a very frustrating guy. I bet people listening have probably had him or tried to, thought about like picking him up in fantasy before and being like, oh, that was a good start. Oh, those 2 were really ugly starts. Like, oh, he's got good stuff, but it's not there. And this year it's all clicked. This is the key though, is like, can the Rays figure out a thing that makes these guys click, and what is their counterpunch to it? And that is where the Rays have been successful. So to me, I would be more in line with the idea, with the hot take that the pitching development and the pitching lab, like it's all burning, it's all falling apart, and it's all gotten stale. If they weren't still showcasing like this top level of pitch quality, it just somehow results and success have just not clicked this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see as this goes forward, because like you're seeing this with also, we talked about Taj, we've talked about Shane. Mason Montgomery is got 2 of the best pitches in baseball. His fastball and his slider are exceptional. Why can he not get anybody out right now? Like it's very weird. Like this is a pitcher who should be pitching way better, and he has been a mess. He's been a disaster. Like I think we talked about Edwin Uceda. Oh, there's another sinker for you, Edwin Uceda.
Yeah. Okay.
There's the counterpoint. Maybe we don't like sinkers.
I don't like relievers with the sinkers as much, although I have been an Edwin Uceda fan for quite some time, and even with his struggles, I'm still a believer.
You haven't sold the stock?
No, I haven't, not yet.
I'm curious to see this. By the dip. I'm very curious to see this going forward, because I think pitching wise, like we've talked about, like I know a lot of people have been concerned about the offense and all that sort of stuff, but a lot of that is like we were missing, and we'll segue into, we've been missing like Josh Lowe, who's like your starting right fielder, and you're missing Kim, who's going to be your starting shortstop. Like you're missing like key pieces, and you have other guys starting slow. The pitching though is like they're healthy, right? Like if this was like you lost
Yeah, no
three
one's missed a
starters.
turn through the rotation. This is not like you're relying on Joe Rock and Ian Seymour to fill up your like. There's been
No.
recent years where that's been the case, and the pitching results have been better.
Yeah, Tyler
Now it hasn't
Alexander
been
and
Joe Rock
and
and Ian
Jacob
Seymour.
Waguespack.
It's been guys like Taj Bradley coming up earlier than expected and doing quite well, and other pitchers stepping into the Drew Rasmussen and Zach Littell stepping into those roles. Obviously, those guys were good enough to do that. So I don't know. It's frustrating.
It is.
Rasmussen.
It's more frustrating than the offense. It is. It's honestly, to me, like the offense is like, yes, whatever. That's frustrating. The offense, we were coming in. This is, trying to be, I think, a 15th, like 15 to 20 range offense, like a good, like a okay league average offense was what we were aiming for. The run prevention is the problem. And that's where like this pitching has been just supremely disappointing.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move over to the offense and just the position player side in general. Josh Lowe is back.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of pleased at how quickly he was able to come back, and not only has he looked really good and really loose, and like he didn't miss a beat at the plate in the field. He threw a runner out at home yesterday, threw 92.5 miles an hour. Frozen rope in from right field to nail. I don't know anybody on the Marlins. I couldn't tell you any of their names except for Jesus Sanchez and Ronnie Simon.
Was it Wagaman? Maybe
I think it was Wagaman. Having him in the lineup again, when you just see the lineup every day, and he's not in the lineup today because they're facing a lefty and he played 3 games in a row. But having him in the lineup is like just makes the lineup look so much better. Another solid left-handed bat. I think he's produced. He had a home run in his first game back. He looks good now. It's just lineup looks better. The guy I want to talk about a little bit more though, and we briefly mentioned it last week, is Christopher Morel, who is like very strictly a bench player now. Like he'll start against lefties.
Mm-hmm.
And he might get 1 start a week to give someone a rest. But that's really disappointing to me. And I'm not sure that's how I would do it because I don't think the results this year from Christopher Morel have been poor enough to warrant that. I understand kind of the pickle that they're in with Chandler Simpson not being quite ready for center field and playing him in left, and Morel obviously not being able to play center field. So Meisner's got to play center field, but you really want to keep Simpson in the lineup. I don't know. I've really enjoyed watching Chandler Simpson. I think he's game breaking, but I was really hoping at the beginning of this season, watching Christopher Morel start in left field was going to be kind of like his make or break. And we haven't got that chance. I feel like that's unfair to him. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I'm very baffled by the usage of Christopher Morel. Like, I understand what his role is right now, which is a short side of the platoon guy, but I'm very confused as to why he is that.
I mean, if he was a bench player on like the 2021 or 2022 Rays, I think it makes a lot more sense.
If you have no Curtis Mead and Christopher Morel as your Mead, maybe, but
this is not a good team right now, and he's still not playing.
Well, the problem is like, okay, the issue is that like Chandler Simpson seemingly is a pretty decent major league player. That's really the problem, right? If Chandler Simpson came up and was just completely overwhelmed and was like, yeah, this is a guy that was in AA like 3 weeks ago, and like he's just now gotten to AAA, like he's wildly overwhelmed, and you got to send him back down for his own development, or you just use him as like a bench guy, like a pinch runner, then Christopher Morel would like be starting. But instead, Chandler Simpson's been like a really effective piece at the bottom of that order, and has had some pretty good games. He's batting 290. Like he's looked like a very solid major league player so far. Defense is definitely coming along. Like he has a lot to go, especially in center field if he ever is going to be there. But like he's been a solid major leaguer. And so when you're looking at the lineup cards, I mean, we were seeing this before yesterday when Morel was in, because Chandler Simpson these last 2 days he's been missing because he had a pretty brutal face plant coming home to try to score in game 2 against the Marlins.
Right.
So they're giving him a couple days rest to kind of get better. Morel started yesterday against a righty, and that was the first time he's played in a game since May 9th. Or sorry, first start. He pinch ran twice in that time period. Curtis Mead tonight, it will be the first time we've seen Curtis Mead on this team since May 9th.
Which, like, I was looking at that this morning, and the way the Rays have done their lineups this year is just unique. It's not what they've been doing.
It's been set and stable.
It's been set, and it's been set with not the guys you'd expect. I tweeted out something last week that when the Rays put out, it was Simpson, Meisner, Jankowski.
Yeah.
As a starting outfield for 4 straight days. It was the first time in over 3 years that that Kevin Cash had written a lineup out with the same outfield for 4 straight days. And that's, if I had told you before the season, Darby, the most consistent Rays outfield is going to be Chandler Simpson, Cameron Meisner, and Travis Jankowski.
I'd be like, Travis Jankowski's still playing? Janko's still playing? That's awesome. Good for him. Get well soon as well, Jankowski.
Convenient IL stint for Jankowski.
Like I said, there's no such thing as convenient groin injury, but timing of an IL stint may be a little convenient with Josh Lowe getting
and hey, if I'm not accusing anybody of anything, if this was a phantom IL stint, this is the type of guy you give it to. A major league journeyman, came up, did a job, played a lot of baseball,
get that money, get that paper,
did the job. It just seems like just a true professional. Came in, knew what his role was, said that in a post-game interview, I think after the walk-off. And you're not going to have room for him on your roster the rest of the season. You're probably going to let him go at some point in the middle of the year here, and hopefully he can find a spot somewhere else. So keep getting him that big league paycheck.
He got his first walk-off before Rafael Devers got his first career walk-off. So that's true. Cool. That's pretty cool.
That's true.
So, okay, here's the thing with this lineup, and back to Christopher Morel. Yeah, no, he's bad in the outfield, right? He's not a good defender. He hasn't been as bad as I was expecting. Like, he's still a very poor defensive player, but he's also made a couple of decent plays. So, like, he hasn't been like, I don't know. I feel like there's been worse outfield. Like we said, kind of like Randy Arozarena, like he was not a very good outfielder. He made a couple good plays, but he would also make some just like bafflingly bad plays. So, like, you kind of like take that with it. Morel.
But they could have played Morel in right field over Jankowski.
You could have played him over in right field over Jankowski. You're looking at this lineup and you're looking at, like, I get that Cameron Meisner is a much better defensive center fielder than anybody else you have on your roster. So you want him in there. He's even in today against a lefty. I get that once Josh Lowe gets back, Josh Lowe is starting every game. And then when you have Chandler Simpson, you're going to be like, well, I'd rather have Chandler Simpson right now than Morel. So I get that. I get how Cash comes around to basically Chris Morel isn't playing. What I don't get is that you made a trade for Christopher Morel, and you've been kind of after Christopher Morel for like several years. Like, there's been a lot of rumors and buzz around the Rays and Christopher Morel well before last year's trade. Like, there's been a lot of talk about him, and he is a very, like, the numbers. I talked about this last week. I think, like, the hard hit rate and the barrel rate are really good still. If anything, I'm looking at his lack of swings as like his biggest issue. Like, yeah, he's striking out way too much. Strike out even more. Swing more. Like, he had 2 Ks yesterday where he was taking pitches in the zone. Just swing. Go up there with that lumber, with that hard hit rate, and just try to whack the hell out of the ball. And if they strike you out, they strike you out. You're probably going to strike out. A strikeout looking is the same as a strikeout swinging if you're not attacking the zone. What I'm just very baffled by is that you came into this season with Christopher Morel. You've targeted him. You've identified him as a player to be. I don't see what he has done this year so far that I could imagine as like worthy of like basically relegating him to an afterthought as just a short side of the platoon bat, and a guy who for his career doesn't hit lefties that well. Like, he does not have extreme splits. He does not have it's just a very strange situation where if you're going to have Curtis Mead on this team as just basically he's here to be your token right-handed hitter, fine. But like Christopher Morel seems like he was a guy that like had a bit more like room to that. And maybe this is simply, maybe we're just overthinking it. And it's just like Cameron Meisner was not supposed to be good or useful. And he's been good and useful. Like the bat has definitely regressed pretty rapidly and pretty bad, but he's still playing really good defense. And so if you're looking at the two, and like I get where Cash is saying, like Cameron Misner is going to give you pretty much about the same equal chance of getting offense as Morel, but he also plays really good defense. So like it makes it hard to not put him into the lineup. And I think maybe that's just it. Is like you're coming in thinking like you want to get a lot of a look at Christopher Morel, but Cameron Misner has been way better than he had any right to be. And Chandler Simpson is held his own. And so suddenly now those two guys.
So what's the path here to playing time?
Injuries. Like right now, I don't see like injuries or trades, but like it's DH. It's Brandon Lowe or Yandy, right? Because it's like you're not benching Aranda unless it's like, you know, getting a spell against basically what's the playing time to him actually getting a right-handed pitching start is what you're saying. And right now it was Chandler Simpson face planting gave him a start against a righty. And right now you're probably not benching Caminero against anybody. You're probably not benching Yandy against anybody. You're not benching Brandon Lowe against anybody. Jonathan Aranda is in against every right-hander. And so now that locks up third base, second base, first base.
And it's tough because Morel has only played, maybe he's come off the bench. The only position he's played is left field, I believe. Like he hasn't played the infield. Christopher Morel experiment seems to be over. He's not a center fielder, and they haven't tried him in right. And so I think that was telling. And so the path, like it's either trading Yandy. It's if it got to a point this season where Chandler Simpson started to really struggle, and if Chandler Simpson's not starting, it's one of those like Simpson. If he's up, he's going to play, and so he takes Morel's spot. If you want to give Simpson some more time. Down in AAA, then you could slot back in. But at that point, okay, I don't know. Is Richie Palacios back? Is Johnny DeLuca back? Is Travis Jankowski back? And they decide, we'll take Travis Jankowski, who's more of a veteran presence. I don't know. Obviously Josh Lowe being back now changes the rest of the outfield outlook.
He's locked in, yeah.
And Ha-Seong Kim is on his way back, who wouldn't have a major impact on Morel's playing time, but it will kind of change the outlook of the bench, pushing someone out. He's going to start eventually. He's going to start most of the game. So that's going to push more players to the bench. So let's talk about Ha-Seong Kim. Ryan Bass reported today that Kim is nearing, he's almost ready to take live at-bats down in the complex league, could start a rehab assignment next week. So I don't know if that's, Tuesday, whenever the week series starts. I imagine it's just the Rays, since minor leagues have changed a little bit, they've been pretty consistent about like complex league replaces your like low level minors rehab. So like you play in the complex league, then you just go to Durham when you're like a week out from being ready, and then you're back. So it could be Durham by the end of next week, and then could be, in 2.5 weeks, we could be seeing him on the big league team. Now I have an idea of what I think they're going to do playing time wise, but I've been baffled, like we've talked about with all the other decisions that have been made this year. Not necessarily disagree with, but baffled by not what I expected coming into the season. So I imagine Kim, you could play him at second base against left-handed pitching to get Brandon Lowe out of the lineup. You've played Curtis Mead there. You've played Jose Caballero at second against lefties. So you could play Kim there. So you're not having him at shortstop all the time, and you're getting a lefty out of the lineup. And then I imagine he's playing like 2 out of every 3 or 3 out of every 5 games at shortstop. You probably give him 1 or 2 off days a week from shortstop against right-handed pitchers. And you've got Taylor Walls still on the team. I think, to back him up. So I think he takes Curtis Mead's spot. Mead is just, like we talked about, not playing at all.
No.
He's providing no value. He's starting tonight. The Rays had faced a number of righties after facing a number of lefties, so maybe Mead's playing time will tick up a little bit, but it's really a roster spot that you don't need. You've got 2 first basemen already, right? With Aranda, and then Diaz could go back out there if you need him to.
And when you have Kim, you don't now have another second baseman, which is Mead's other position. Yeah,
exactly. And so I think Jose Caballero, then his 2 positions become right field. He can platoon in right field with Josh Lowe, and he can back up Caminero, once every 10 days or every 2 weeks to give Caminero an off day at third base. And so, that gives Kim, that gives him, if he plays 5 games out of 6 in a week, I think that's, they're going to ease him back in, but you can only ease him back in so much. Like, once he's ready, he's got to be ready to play. So they might slow play the rehab assignment. They might give him 8 days in Durham instead of 5, and he plays in 5 or 6 games while he's in Durham, and then he's back. So they might take their time on this one, and I think there will be some precautions. He won't play every single game once he's up, but eventually. And again, this is another addition that is going to really lengthen the lineup.
Absolutely. I mean, and like, we have to temper our expectations with how much offense Kim is going to provide coming back from shoulder injury, but like, just more professional at bats, more walks.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be really big. I mean, that's what we've seen like from Taylor Walls, as we've like kind of praised him last week. Seeing him just be like a more of a scrappy guy who's getting on base, taking walks, putting the ball in play, putting it on the ground. Like, that's what Kim can do. Like at like kind of his worst. At his best, he can get you a couple of bombs and get some gappers. That if those aren't there yet this year because of the shoulder, he can at least do what Taylor Wall, like the Taylor Walls that we've been envisioning for so long. He can at least provide that, and that's really key. So gaming it out, okay, he's gonna take some live BP in the complex league, possibly ready for what was Ryan's words? It was possibly ready for a rehab assignment next week.
Yeah, but it wasn't clear if so the Bulls would start their series. It's a home series. They would start it on Tuesday. They have Mondays off. Actually, no, that's not true. Next Monday they're playing because it's Memorial Day. So I'm sure they have an off day mixed somewhere in there. Maybe it's Tuesday, but they'll play 6 games. And then, but I don't know. It could be complex league, into next week, and then joining Durham by the end of that weekend. I was kind of, if I had to guess, I was going to say,
where do you plug it in on?
Second series in June.
Marlins home series.
So yeah, you open June against the Orioles. No, it's not the Tigers. No, yes, Marlins. Marlins. I'm looking at the wrong part of the schedule. Yes.
Do you do it
third against, and then I think
do you do it on Evan Longoria Day, June 7th?
Maybe. Gotta have a lot.
Or is that a hat on a hat? Do you already have? You already got that game sold out.
Yeah, so maybe you do it the very next day. I don't know. Are people coming to the stadium for House on Cam? I would, but I don't know if everyone else is.
Yeah, no. So you could. So it's. I mean, I don't know how much that is ever like really lined up. I always look at that for like prospect call ups, like where it's like a day off and then a home game. I'm always like, oh, there's their travel day. This is when they're gonna call them up. I don't know so much for like vets like that. Like Josh Lowe. That was probably the injury that kind of like did it, but like that was sort of just like, oh, Janikowski's injured. All right, Josh Lowe, they probably had about 2 more days of rehab for him, and he was probably going to be there for like the Marlin series, and then they were like, all right, well, you're in,
right?
I think that makes sense, right? Either like the home series against the Rangers or the Marlins, somewhere in that homestand. June 3rd through the 8th makes a lot of sense, and that way he's then with you when you go on the road to Boston and New York and start the June stretch.
Yeah, Should be interesting. We haven't really heard anything else about Johnny DeLuca or Richie Palacios. I just don't know what the timetable is on those guys. It could be a while.
Yeah.
And it could be one of those seasons where they just struggle to get healthy. Jake Mangum, we haven't heard anything about. And then I don't know what's going to happen with Jankowski, even if it is a short stay. Like it could be once he's off the IL, he's DFA. So,
or is he? Or is he? I'm still not 100% sure that Cameron Misner lasts over Jankowski.
I don't know, man. Misner is like he's their center fielder right now. Like I don't.
Once DeLuca's back. Until DeLuca's not back.
Yeah, but if Jankowski, like someone said, it might be a minimal stay. I think Ryan Bass might have tweeted that as well. So it might be 10 days, and then he needs a place to play because he has no options. I don't see Misner going out until maybe DeLuca's back. I'm not even convinced that's. I mean, could you option DeLuca?
No. DeLuca's better than Misner. What are you talking about?
Maybe.
You already have an abundance of lefties. There's your way. Like swap Misner for DeLuca, and now you get some playing time for Morel.
Okay, apparently Jake Mangum is set for a rehab assignment tomorrow. Ryan Bass has also reported, and thank you to Legos for that.
See, that's going to be an interesting question there.
I think he just goes to AAA.
Yeah. Yeah. My question with this, and this is going to be something for the future, is I want to know what the front office is thinking with like Christopher Morel. Like, is this a guy that you think like we just can't quite get him into the lineup because of the current players we have, but we think there's something here and there's some things he needs to work on? Or are you just like, or is this a Rene Pinto like, yeah, actually, wait, we're out 100%. Like we were starting the season, like you're the starting left fielder, but like 2 weeks in, we're like, yeah, actually, never mind, you're out. We're 100%.
I mean, they could trade him.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, but like
it could be really it would be disappointing to me if they it would be disappointing.
It also doesn't make any sense to me. Like there's not been enough of a like when you make the Rays don't do stuff like that a lot, which is like make a big trade for a player that they've scouted and targeted, and then like not like what 2 months of spring training and like a couple of weeks, and you're like out.
Well, but they're not even playing him. It's not like he's playing every day and stinking up the joint, and you got to do whatever you can just to get him off the team.
Sure,
he's not playing. That's where my issue is.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's
the circumstances, like the context that it's happening in, makes sense to me. It is disappointing to see. And again, the roster fit was going to be weird when you wanted to bring Caminero up if you kept Isaac Paredes, but to see Isaac Paredes having such a great start to the season with Houston, I mean, they're playing there tonight. That game just got underway in Tampa. It's disappointing to trade a guy like that. And I know there were other pieces in that trade, but Morel was the one I was most excited about. And for it to have kind of soured so quickly. And who knows? If knock on wood, if there's an injury tomorrow to Diaz or to Simpson, Morel's in the lineup every day. Like there were stretches early in the season where Morel played left field every day for like 10 straight days. He was your opening day starter. Like he can get back out there. He's just clearly not the first choice right now. So I don't know.
And I look at that trade, and we can do. Rays fans love to relitigate trades. It's our curse. We just like can't stop relitigating even like tiny things. When I look at like the trade of Paredes, I mean I think you can definitely be like, okay, you don't love the return. I don't hate the idea of trading Paredes. I think the idea is like you cannot have Caminero, Paredes, Lau, Aranda, and Yandy.
Yeah.
So one of them has to go. Like this is definitely one of those spots where it's like, okay, I get it. You like, why don't we keep the good players and get rid of the bad players? Okay, sure, great. But like, you got to pick one of those guys. And honestly, it's Aranda, right? You don't have Aranda right now. He is gone. He is gone. He is somewhere else, and he is raking. And you are like, why did we let that happen?
Yeah, what
right?
if there was a like if I'm watching the season play out and Aranda, who's been your best hitter, is raking and Kyle Manzardo is raking, I'm really frustrated as a
Yeah.
Rays fan.
Yeah. And so like I think with Paredes, like I listen, I get it. I get it. Like he is great. And I like the bat. He's still like producing the power, but he's still just such a great stuff. But yeah, it's like you are looking at you have to get rid of Aranda, Brandon Lau, or Yandy.
Yeah, and
Like
I don't know.
that's it. Like you and if you're like, yeah, get rid of Brandon Lau and get rid of Yandy, then I'm like, oh yeah, that also works, right? You trade Yandy, trade Brandon Lau, Paredes is your first baseman, Aranda is your second baseman. Like I'm totally fine with that. Is like if you're like, this is my relitigation was we should have traded, like don't stop with Randy, trade them all, trade all the old guys. I'm not gonna fight that. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. But like that's the level, right? It's like I don't come to me with like, well, I'm not gonna get rid of Brandon Lau. I definitely want Aranda because he's a breakout guy. Yandy's our heart. Cam Monero is the stud. And it's like, okay, then where does Paredes get playing time?
Not enough room for everyone out there.
So you got to make the choices. Whether they make the right choice and in the return, that's the real question. But like,
and some of it's luck, right?
Yeah.
Some of the trades the Rays have won massively have been luck. I think over time they've had good process, and that wins out in the long run.
And that process is the part. That's the part with the Morel thing that to me, and that is my last little bit with it, is
the Paredes
I
trade
don't understand. Sense. It does make sense. And when you have been targeting, like when the Rays scout and target a player, and they've been like, we've been circling this guy for a while, they're usually right. You know, like this is how you get a guy. This is how you get a guy like Isaac Paredes in the first place. You're like,
people were upset about that trade. And also,
you're trading.
Austin Meadows has gone through some stuff, but he's not in baseball anymore, right? Like you were clearly, Paredes was the guy to target.
I just don't think the fact that he's not playing now, the fact that he's not playing now, the fact that that it doesn't seem like he's in their plans, and we're already talking about like, they're going to trade him. It seems like a strange, like you don't just do that move. And again, we talked about with like Isaac Paredes, the whole idea is like he was also still cost control pretty much. Like he was still cheap. So like that's not a trade that you're doing to like save money. You do that like trade if you're like, well, we're just getting out of Brandon Lowe's money, and like Morel will take a shot on, and then like a year later you soured, and it's like, okay, fine. But you targeted him as like one of the key pieces in that trade. 5 years of control. Like I don't get it, especially because like we've talked about this. Like last year was a down year, but he had 2 previous seasons where he actually produced really well at the plate. So like there's a good player there. I just don't know what the Rays are doing in terms of I'm not sure what the plan is. And that's the part that usually there is a plan. And that's the part that I'm a little confused by.
Like and even with the roster circumstances, you could play Simpson 2 out of every 3 days and left, then give him a day in center where you're sitting Meisner and starting Morel, where you're getting Simpson the big league reps in center field, you're keeping Morel fresh, and you're benching Meisner because I don't know if Meisner's an everyday big league player. I don't know if he should be long term.
Like I get that you're not playing Meisner against lefties, right? He's been very bad against, but only because like Chandler Simpson's face is all messed up. Yeah. But like Meisner's disaster against lefties. So I totally get that. I get that like against righties, you're like, well, I'd like to have Meisner in there. Like he hits righties really well. I am with you. I'd be like, let's throw one. I don't know how Christopher Morel can succeed playing once on the 9th and then again on the 18th.
And it's the same with Curtis Mead, and I'm all for Curtis Mead not playing.
Yes,
but if he's here, like the Rays have always done that. If you're here, if you're a spot on that active roster, one of those 26 is very valuable, and you got to make good use of all 26 of those guys in whatever role it is. And it's like Mead has had no role. Morel has had a very small role. I don't know. I've got one question for you to wrap up
Okay.
the show here. Okay. Assuming that the Rays make a trade this year involving one of their current major league position players,
Okay.
which I think they've done every year.
Yeah. It's a very safe bet.
Maybe 2021 they didn't. Maybe 2020 they didn't. I don't know. Who is the first going to be? And I'm talking guys that start. I'm not talking like Jake Mangum, like guys that not
like
the fringe
official.
guys.
Brandon Lowe.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there.
I think Brandon Lowe, and I think,
is it because of the market? Like the market for Brandon Lowe players will go up the fastest.
Yes, and I think with the emergence of Jonathan Aranda, with him kind of coming, and with guys like Richie Palacios and Jose Caballero, I think you can basically be okay with having, you have guys like Brandon Lowe's biggest thing is he is your best power hitter by a large margin, right? I mean, like Junior Caminero is needs to take that mantle, but he's just going to keep hitting it into the ground.
Lifting the ball.
Right. He's got Eloy Jimenez disease, where he's a hulking guy who's smashing it into the ground, or Yandy Diaz disease. Hopefully he gets the Yandy Diaz disease where he can lift the ball a bit more. When it comes to Brandon Lowe, you do miss the power. There is something that is hard to replicate in that bat. However, you also have him for one more year after this. Definitely controllable year, like easy option to pick up. But when you've just did that little extension for Yandy Diaz, I think you are making the choice that you're keeping one and not the other. And when you have Kim and when you have Aranda now breaking, if Aranda didn't break through, I think Brandon Lowe is a harder sell to move. But I do think you have, if you are looking at somebody like, I don't know, Cameron Misner as a guy that you think is like, that's a pretty decent guy that you can do in a large platoon, suddenly the need for Brandon Lowe's lefty bat is softened a little bit. Like it won't replicate it. It won't replicate it, but you can get something back for that. Yeah, I think Brandon Lowe, when you because you have Richie Palacios, because you have Jonathan Aranda, because you have guys that when Kim is here, you also have Taylor Walls, who could maybe even play second, like in the interim. I feel like it's a harder spot to keep in that role. And I think the market will be plentiful for him. There is
I look at the Houston Astros.
The Astros
who need a left-handed bat, who have played with Jose Altuve playing left field, so that could open up second base. The way they do their lineups, at least recently, they might even say, Brandon Lowe, get your outfield glove back out.
What about
him fitting there, because they're the power, like Walker and Altuve not hitting for power anymore has really hurt their lineup. And
they have fewer home runs.
Just homered to give the Astros the lead.
What about was that with 2 out?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. 2 out home runs. That's been the Rays cannot get out of an inning giving up home runs. Always home runs.
Like Caratini has actually hit well this year.
He's been doing pretty good. Yeah, they have 2 good little catchers. So the other option is like, what about who's a star, a multi-time All-Star who has accepted switching to first base when called upon? Brandon Lowe. What about the Boston Red Sox?
Oh, don't say that.
Boston Red Sox, that's an option. They were talking about Yandy. You have that.
Makes a lot of sense.
Seattle Mariners can definitely need more power. They could use a first baseman. They could also use a second baseman. Yeah. Maybe don't trade for Yandy if there is beef and bad blood with Randy, but Brandon Lowe, no beef with him. You got a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams that would absolutely line up for Brandon Lowe services. And I think you can absolutely get a nice return there. But I don't know if that is the way you go. I don't know if I don't think that's a move you make until July. So if you are doing moves, I don't think that's one that's happening anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, if you've seen an earlier trade, I don't know, like Johnny DeLuca could be an easier guy to move, can plug in and play center field, can run a little bit, and you might feel comfortable with your other center field options,
I just
especially
don't
if it's
think they're
going to be
moving.
Stinson moving forward.
I'll just say this. I don't think unless the team thinks Chandler Simpson is going to be your everyday center fielder, I think Johnny DeLuca is a really important player for this team. And that's a player that I think the Rays are missing really badly right now. Is a center fielder who can play defense that can hit against lefties. And Johnny DeLuca can absolutely hit against lefties, and he can play a really good center field. And that is a big piece. I think Kim and DeLuca really changed this lineup probably the most. Kim the most. I think DeLuca second most. Legitimately.
Okay, I'm just not sold on DeLuca. I'm welcoming him back. I think that it'll be fine. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. But I've been pessimistic on DeLuca since like the middle of last year, so nothing's changed there. Any other notes? I mean, we're starting another homestand, already down 1-0, so great start there.
The issue
Gordon's definitely going to pitch a shutout tonight, so I think we can just chalk this one up as a loss.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is the Houston Astros offense has been as bad as the Rays. They also are as light a power as the Rays. So coming to Steinbrenner Field will be very good for them, as it's very bad for the Rays, but very good for anybody hitting there against the Rays. This is going to be the thing. If the Astros are ever going to hit for power, it'll be here, because they have not hit for power at home. They've not hit for power anywhere on the road. They're one of the few teams that actually has fewer home runs.
Isaac Paredes is going to hit like 4 home runs at Steinbrenner, and we're going to be like, why do we not get this? And
he doesn't hit to
double home another run.
He can't hit to left field. You can't hit to left field. Isaac Paredes, that's the one person I don't think is going to hit a home run in this series. Because he doesn't. If he could go the other way, it'd be great. Because that Carantini home run was it had a little power, but like it's carrying to that spot.
I'll end the show with this thought. Now we're getting close to an hour 15, but Cam Smith, who just doubled home to make it 2-0. The Cubs traded Paredes and Cam Smith to get Kyle Tucker. Could the Rays have traded Paredes and Braden Taylor? Is that the same type of return as Cam Smith, or maybe Carson Williams? I don't know. I don't know if you're trading Carson Williams for a year of Kyle Tucker, who has yet to sign an extension, or did he sign one?
He's not. He is testing free agency. I don't think so. I think you could do that. I think you could have done a Carson. I think Carson and Paredes for Tucker is absolutely a deal that is fair. I think I would much stomach it better with Braden Taylor. And it would be really disappointing if that was the trade you make and Shane Boss and Taj Bradley were as bad as this, knowing that
it doesn't matter.
Kyle Tucker can't do anything to save you there. Right. Like, I think like anything about that is like really showing like you cannot, when your pitching is not succeeding, you cannot, you're not a Tucker away. You're not a Tucker. You're not keeping all of the offense, like keeping every offensive piece. You're not going to be able to overcome like the pitching that's been letting him down. So I think yes, but that would be really hard to like see Carson Williams go, see Paredes go for that. And so
it's now Houston.
Yeah, I saw the little hit. All but 2 outs. I mean, this has also been like every Rays pitcher. This has been the problem. They cannot finish innings. Like they have most of the damage comes when it's with 2 outs, when it's like really close. And that's a lot of that is luck, but a lot of that is just luck of the sequence. But like maybe that is like the pitching, right? Maybe that is the like coaching, but I don't know. Pitching just needs to be better, right? Like the pitching has been the grave disappointment on this season to me, like by a large margin, because the stuff is there. The performances have been terrible, largely terrible. And it's top to bottom, right? Like Garrett Clevenger is like the only guy Garrett Clevenger, Drew Rasmussen have really equated themselves well. Zach Littell has been really good. I think he's been definitely better than the other guys, but like the rest of that bullpen has been very, very shaky. I don't think Kevin Cash likes going to any of them in the bullpen right now. And the rotation's been mostly just not putting up like competitive starts, I would say.
That too. And it's also Ryan Pepiot. They just showed a close up of him and he is sweating. It's incredibly hot. I know we're getting into the really hot season down there. But it's like in the 90s. And I don't know, almost climate change impacting the Rays more than any other team in baseball right now.
Pretty horrifically, yeah. Yeah.
So
sink in a stadium,
yeah,
forcing you into the worst shitbox on the planet.
It's tropical climates now. That's what we're dealing with. And maybe that's what it's going to be like all year. So who knows? Who knows what we're going to have to say the next time we come back in a couple of weeks. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Raise Your Voice. Thank you guys for listening. We have been live on youtube.com/@Raise Your Voice. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications. You can join us when we go live. We're also still available wherever you get your podcasts. Leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That's one really great way to spread what we do to more and more Rays fans. If you want to say thank you, patreon.com/Raise Your Voice, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. As always, make sure to head on over to draysbay.com to check out all that great Rays coverage. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.